So typically, when I have somebody on, I open by digging through their social media and posting something or reading back to them something that they've posted online. For you, Dr. McKnight, I actually went to your Goodreads page. Have you gone through your Goodreads page before?
I have not. I have not.
Okay. I went to your Goodreads and I found a quote. It's from your book, The Blue Parakeet. And it says this: God did not give the Bible so we could master him or it. God gave the Bible so we could live it, so we could be mastered by it. The moment we think we've mastered it, we have failed to be readers of the Bible. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, this is so important. There is a sense in which we read the Bible, we learn it, we know it, we love it. We can get to the point where we think we know it all. And the Bible is not like that. Is it is too vast and too deep and too wide and too high to master it. We perceive something one day in, let's say, the book of Romans, and 10 years later we read it and we think, I feel like I've never read this letter before. Now I have a different, and this is what has been the case in my life. I've been teaching the Bible for over 4 decades. And I'm amazed at the newness and freshness of the Bible all the time. And my goal is to just let it speak to me where I am in the present moment, and listen. Just become a listener.
What are your thoughts on Bible reading? What do you think that practice for a Christian should look like? Are you a believer that every Christian should be reading their Bible every day? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a Bible teacher, Heather. So yes, I do think that. But in this sense, the first century believers in Jesus, followers of Jesus in Galilee or Judea, did not have copies of the Bible. They didn't they didn't have copies of the Gospels, that's for sure. And yet they did very well as followers of Jesus. I think we have to keep this in mind. The second thing is many people have not been able to read in the history of the church. It wasn't until the 20th century that reading became as pervasive in society as it has. The third thing is there's a lot of people who are just not real big readers. I have some of my favorite people that I know, wonderful Christian people. One of them was working in our house one day. He says, I didn't read a book my entire college career, and I don't plan on reading one now. So I respect this in the sense that this is a part of human makeup, but I believe that we have a very big privilege in having the scriptures available to us in so many ways. On my phone, I can sit in church and check a text to see if they're looking at the Greek or Hebrew text. I can just look at it on my phone and know. Of course, people probably think I'm checking my social media or Twitter or text messages, but I think that we should read the Bible. As if we are Bible readers, I think we should become adept at Bible reading, and I think there's a couple ways. Sometimes we need to read the Bible fast, and that is read for an hour without pausing, and rather not skimming, but rather quickly, so that we can say read a whole book. Uh, not Isaiah, not Ezekiel, of course, but and read a whole book in one sitting. I think that it's important to read the whole Bible on a regular basis. And I also think that there's importance in slow reading. And in slow reading, we pause with every thought and we ponder and we chase down some of our questions and ask, why is this word being used here? And why did they change the word there? And just take it where it takes us. And I think in all these different readings that the Bible will become more alive. Now, as a professor, I want people to become more alert to historical context. So I want them to understand Galilee. I want them to understand Judea. I want them to understand what Pharisees are. It's important to read about the Dead Sea Scrolls just to feel for what that world was like. And for many years, many Christians read Josephus, the Jewish historian, alongside their Bible as a typical way of reading the Bible, to know that historical background. And I think it illuminates the text. I also think it's important to appreciate different authors in the New Testament. And I've said this, I've taught this for many years. We tend to um, homogenize all the writers of the New Testament according to our favorite author. So if we like Paul, we make everybody fit what we think Paul is teaching. And if we like Jesus, we make everything else fit what we think Jesus is teaching. Whereas if we were in a first century room, we would have Matthew and Mark and Luke and John. Those are four different people writing. We'd have Paul, and we'd have Peter, and we'd have James, and we'd have Jude, and we'd have the writer of Hebrews, whoever it is. And we could ask them one question: what is salvation like? What do you think about Jesus? What is the Christian life like? And we would get overlapping answers with differences. But if we homogenize them, we've colonized the Bible. But if we allow each voice to speak, we hear the importance of talking about the same topic from different angles that will lead us into a deeper perception of the truth. So, those are some ideas.
I am somebody who I think I was like working at a Christian summer camp, and I realized that I had never read the Bible in its entirety. I was one of those people that, I think a lot of people do this. Lord, show me what I should read. And I like open it. And that's the message that I had that day. But I was like 19, and I read this quote by J.I. Packer that said, "Any Christian worth I've added his or her salt will read their Bible cover to cover every year." And I was really convicted by that. And I started reading my Bible cover to cover. I'm on my 14th time through right now. And I have never been more humble in my understanding than I am today. If anything, I feel like I thought I knew so much on time 1, 2, 3, 4 that now my understanding is just, I feel like I'm constantly reading a book like yours, Revelation for the rest of us, or an N.T. Wright or a John Walton, and I am seeing the Bible, or Kenneth Bailey too. I'm seeing things that I never saw, had no idea were even there. So one of the first books I actually ever read of the Bible, the first book I ever read of the Bible, and I would not recommend this to anybody listening, but I was like in 4th or 5th grade, and I wanted to be a good Christian. And so I opened up my Bible and I read the book of Revelation. It was the first book I ever read. And of course, because I hadn't read the rest of the Bible, I didn't understand any of it. But I remember highlighting one of the first lines: "Blessed is the one who reads the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near." And so I'm like 9 or 10, and I am ready to tell everybody that God is coming back. Right? Like, God is coming back tomorrow. I know, so I've read it in Revelation. Talk to me about what you believe the ultimate message to the church today that we can find in the book of Revelation. And also, how do we respond or undo, if it needs to be undone, some of that thinking that many Christians like myself grew up under, where it's like, do I even go to college because God's going to come back tomorrow? How did we get that from Revelation as well?
Well, that happened to me when I was in college. Or high school. I asked my youth pastor if I should go to college. He said, "Well, I just heard a sermon about the imminent return of Christ," and he said, "You better go to college just in case the preacher's wrong." It was a visiting speaker. Well, that was a long time ago. Um, okay, I think the basic message of the Book of Revelation is that God is going to win in the battle over evil and the battle for justice and peace in this world. And that it is vitally important for those who know about Jesus Christ to make a decision if they want to live the way he has called them to live. And that will mean following the Lamb. The book of Revelation sees Jesus as the Lamb. That's one of the major images. And it is a book that is filled with, at times, cringe-worthy scenes, and other times just absolutely amazing graphic images in the sky, dragons and women and all these fantastic scenes, the sun and the moon and the stars falling and all this stuff. Um, and I think what it's saying is that there is a battle in this life, and you have to sort of choose your team, whether you want to side with Team Dragon or you want to side with Team Lamb. And it makes a huge difference in life whether you will enter the New Jerusalem if you follow the Lamb, and you will not enter New Jerusalem. That's a nice way of saying it. If you follow Team Dragon. And so it becomes, in a sense, it says that God's team wins, Team Lamb, but it also says this: you have to become the sorts of people who will resist the presence of the dragon in Babylon. It uses this image of Babylon as an evil empire. Uh, yeah, it's that's amazing. It's an amazing chapter. I mean, it's graphic, but it describes the violence of Babylon, and it basically calls believers to choose whether they want to live like that or they want to resist that. So, one of the essential visions of the book of Revelation is its call to make Christians dissident disciples, resistors of the way of the dragon, of the way of Babylon in this life as we follow Jesus. And at times, we live in environments that are very comfortable for Christians. There have been times when I've been with people and everybody in the room is a Christian. It feels pretty good. And other times you're with people who you think, these people, they are connected to the dragon. I mean, what's going on in Israel and Hamas today? There's some dragon stuff going on, and the question is, how do we respond to this sort of thing? And I think the Book of Revelation calls us to discern the way of the Lamb and to live that way, to speak up, to speak out, and at times we're going to experience that people don't like us. They're going to resist. They're going to fight us. So the book of Revelation is essentially a book about discipleship, of how to live in a world that doesn't like you, how to live in Babylon as a follower of the Lamb.